This is the Canadian Airboats LSA supercharged belt drive being used as a taxi out in the First Nations reserve in Ontario. They're just transporting over to this island across the way here. Approximately 300 people live out on the island, so this taxi runs basically from 8 in the morning till 11 at night. We're here with Kyler Cotton here. He's a policy analyst for the First Nations, and as you can see, we just shot a bit of footage of the airboat that's being used to transport the First Nations folks from the mainland over to the island. And Kyler, can you tell us a little bit about how much this affects the community there?
Oh, they call it the Lifeline. This is the Lifeline. This time of year, there's no safe way in or out of this community because of the rotting ice conditions.
Yes.
And so you get what you see here, the transition between water and ice, and that's the main thing. The ice may actually be quite safe out in the middle, but getting to it and getting off it is the dangerous part. And then of course it's degrading all the time. And when you get a situation like this where it's really not that far, people will actually make the attempt because how it might be possible.
Yeah.
And it's really that closeness that is part of the danger, that people will take the risk. And in the case of Shoal Lake 40, there have been lives lost in these conditions. And so you also need, because they'll try something, they'll use some sort of interim measure, push a canoe, do something, which can even be more dangerous. So what you need is something that you can rely on. And the airboat is that thing, the thing that has been built specifically to deal with these conditions. It's going to keep you safe through the water part, through the ice part, and get you out of the other side you can rely on. And yeah, this is the second Canadian airboat that Shoal Lake 40's bought, and well, they wouldn't go anywhere else. Just it's that kind of security that when lives depend on it, you want to be able to depend on the equipment.
Excellent. We've just shot a few pictures of the airboat that we designed. It's TP1332. It is Department of Transport safe. It has full flotation, level flotation, and that craft is designed with UHMW polymer on the bottom to allow it to break loose and easily transport folks across the relatively short distance, but extremely dangerous, especially in the broken ice conditions.
These conditions, the conditions that we see behind me, the water to ice, is what people face to get from one side of from one shoreline to the other. And you can imagine yourself facing this and say, how can I possibly do this and do this safely? I've got groceries, I've got to go see grandma at the hospital, I've got to live my life. And what stands between me and my life are these conditions. And so you need the vehicle to meet these challenges. And the only way to meet these challenges is something that's custom built to go both on air, on water and on ice. And that's an airboat that is built and designed for these conditions, and that's the only thing that's going to get you across safely. And that's what the people at Shoal Lake 40 have chosen. They have had the bitter experience of making mistakes in these conditions, and people have tried to go across and have failed, and there have been with disastrous results, with loss of life, with injury, with people who have barely made it out, falling through these conditions. And they've chosen an airboat to be their reliable form of transportation. And I agree.
As the water starts to prevail and the ice degrades, over what period of time are these people reliant upon this airboat in order to make it to their community?
Well, it changes every year, right? And the time with global warming that now that even the season is changing. So it's completely unpredictable. You can get rotting conditions at the shoreline. You can get runoff where it lifts the ice, and now you've got the water at the shoreline, and perfectly good ice out in the middle, and that can prevail for a month. It can keep going on, and sometimes it seems like forever.
Substantial.
Shoal Lake 40 has had a Canadian airboat for almost 20 years now, right? And the first one sadly was prompted by a death, that we lost somebody, and that they needed to find some piece of equipment that could get people back and forth on a regular basis safely under changing conditions, ice and water conditions. And so the answer was an airboat. So this is now the transportation system. This is the only way to get in and out of Shoal Lake 40 during spring particularly, during these ice conditions, and it's the airboat. So it's the Lifeline. It is the transportation system. It's the car that people jump into in the morning to get to work, and it's reliable. They run it from the morning until late at night, so that people can carry on with their lives in some sort of normal fashion. And
so the main thing here would be the safety and the to create a safe access for these isolated communities. And in the case of this Shoal Lake community, they're relying, would you say, for at least 30 to 40 day period in the springtime?
30 days at least is that questionable period. And that's not to say that you can't have it at any time of the year. So that there are certain conditions when nothing else will get there other than an airboat. So, and this has actually happened, that you've got ice and it's drivable ice right at the community, but somebody's out on an island, or somebody's out on the trapline, or ventured out to do some ice fishing and gotten into a situation, and now you need the airboat 365 days a year. So it's not yes, for Shoal Lake 40 situation, it is the only safe transportation system for a specific period, but it can come in real handy. It can be essential at any time of the year.
Right. So would you say that the alternative would be what, a helicopter?
Pretty much, yeah. And there are, because a helicopter is going to put pressure on the ice, so you're going to need a helicopter on flotation to get into certain situations.
So they just go mainland to mainland.
That transportation system is life and death, literally. Either that or you just don't go. So you don't get your groceries, you don't get to see grandma at the hospital, you don't get to your job. But that transportation must be reliable, and they call it the Lifeline. It's life and death, and there's no other way to describe it.
Yeah, we have just demonstrated here on the Shoal Lake that there's a real need for an airboat this time of year. Now, there's many craft that can transition across this type of conditions safely, which would be hovercrafts, various manufacturers of airboats. But the one thing that we provide, which is, I think, uniquely safe, is the all aluminum construction airboat. And because at this time we're faced with the thawing conditions where you're not just running on solid ice, after a while you're breaking ice and you're pounding through ice, and you get that weight of the ice on the sidewalls of the airboat. And so we've chosen to go with an all welded aluminum hull with special sidewall stiffeners, full-sized level flotation compartments down each side of the boat, which adds a terrific amount of strength. And we've doubled and tripled up on our T-bar on the bottom to make an actual ice airboat. It's not just an airboat. It's not meant for the swamps, although it'll do swamps, but it's designed as an ice airboat. And that's what we've got out here, and that's what we were showing earlier.
40, this is their Lifeline. This is their transportation system. and lives have been lost prior to the arrival of the airboat, and so this is in reality the lifeline. But it's also a practical lifeline. As Guy has said, it needed something that actually is built for ice and is going to take the abuse that ice is going to give a craft. The other one that the airboat does, that a hovercraft or something, that the ability to load and unload easily, that it's an open vessel. It is you can get gear into it, you can get an elder into it and out of it conveniently and safely. And so as an all-round useful vehicle that serves the purposes and will stand up to the conditions, the airboat is second to none. It's absolutely the answer for these conditions.
So obviously in these remote communities, the critical thing is in that transitional period, because in the winter the ice is 2 feet thick, they can walk out, they can drive out. But when it starts getting unsafe, the problem is when they misjudge how safe this really is. They've been used to walking this thing or driving it with cars and trucks, and all of a sudden the ice gets honeycombed, the water comes in, starts melting from the bottom, the shoreline starts to turn to liquid, and although the shoreline's liquid, the ice out there is varying degrees of safety. And at that point, somebody has to just draw the line and say no more of this. It's an airboat or something equivalent for that safety measure. Can you add something to that there, Kyler?
No, that pretty much captures it, that it's the only thing that you can rely on. And the community has looked at a lot of things. The community has looked at hovercraft.
Yes.
So hovercraft, airboats, different kinds of airboats.
Yes.
That you can, and there are people who have wind-driven boats, but those are wind-driven boats on water. And if they're just built for water, they're going to rattle apart, they're going to fall apart, they're going to leak, and they're going to be unsafe if you take them on the ice. So because they can't hold up to that kind of pounding. So you need something custom designed for these particular conditions. They're extreme conditions, and so you need something custom designed specifically for these to hold up to those conditions. And nothing else, in my experience, that I've been around like 40 years on the lake. And the airboat is really the answer, the most consistent answer going.